Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. Thanks to those of y'all who've joined today. Today is our ASSISTments free webinar on learning data to learning growth with illustrative mathematics. And so I'm happy to sort of dive into our data and in particular look at some illustrative math data and some exemplars to talk about how you can use ASSISTments data on a daily basis and use it to help you drive your instruction. As a reminder, those of you in this session will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the slide deck and video recording. The session will be interactive, so we recommend going ahead and logging in to your ASSISTments verified teacher account at assistments.org. For presenters today, you have me, Brian Story, the Director of Teacher Engagement at ASSISTments, and joining, and I was sorry, I was about to pass it right over to Charmaine. So I was a classroom teacher for a decade and have been working with ASSISTments for the past 4 years to deliver professional learning to teachers to support them in their classrooms. So I'm happy to be here with you today. And with that, I'll pass it over to Charmaine.
Hi, good evening. I'm Charmaine. I was a high school teacher, also worked at high school math teacher, sorry. Worked as an instructional coach for middle elementary, also worked at the state level and am a nomad, so did some traveling and moving. And before I came to ASSISTments in June, was the director for math for a district in New Orleans.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Charmaine. So I thought it'd be fun just to start off with folks, and you can actually share aloud or in the chat if that's what you're comfortable with. Either way is fine. What is your favorite time of year and why? And while you're thinking about that, I'll share mine. Mine is I live in North Carolina. And I don't really care for the humidity. So you might be wondering, well, why did you decide to live in North Carolina? Many other reasons. But for me, my favorite time of year is probably the spring and the fall, when the humidity is a little bit lower. It's not as cold, not as hot. Basically, as close as we can get to room temperature outside with low humidity and a little bit of sunshine is about ideal for me. Charmaine, do we have any responses coming in the chat?
Yeah, so spring, I like newness of life. That was the reason why. That's actually pretty good. And then so that was from Luis. Claire is summer, sunshine and long days. Oh, Robert, we're not on the same page. Is winter, colder, and can use his snow machine. Okay, shout out to you. One of my stints was in Wisconsin, and I was like, Jesus, what am I doing up here? So I'm kind of like trying to detox from the snow. Texas, I like that name. Texas at fall, everything about it. We on the same page about that. Fall is my most favorite. I love everything fall. I love pumpkins. I love the smells. I love when the leaves change colors. One thing I do like about New Orleans is it's fall, basically like October to March-ish. So like, I'm here for that. Oh, Bush, Alaska. Okay, so Robert's in Bush, Alaska. You know, hey, shout out to you.
We get a smattering of snow sometimes in North Carolina. It was a little bit more when I lived in DC, but it's one of those things where I like to look at it for a little while, and then after that little while, I'm kind of tired of it. So more power to you if you can handle the snow. That's awesome. Thanks everybody for sharing. So just to let you know where we are in the sequence of free webinars that we offer this fall, we've already done our step-by-step to getting started sessions, which you can find in the webinar library, which Charmaine is going to provide that link in the chat. Right now, we're doing the sessions around data, so from learning data to learning growth. And today's session is for illustrative mathematics in particular. And then we're also going to have some deep dives where we kind of cover some topics that, we usually don't have time to cover in our regular free webinar sessions. So we're excited to have those coming up as well. We'll start off with just our goals and agenda. Then we're going to dive into the ASSISTments assignment report. And then we're going to go through a basic protocol that you can use day to day to quickly identify what next steps you want to take based on the data that you're seeing in your ASSISTments assignment reports. And then we're going to speak a bit about some tips and considerations for your assessments routine that might be helpful before we wrap up. So in today's session, you should leave today confident that you know how to interpret the key data points and assessments in our assignment reports, that you know how to draw conclusions based on this data about student successes and challenges, and that you can determine the highest leveraged instructional next step based on data. We do assume in this data session that you understand how our content library works, how to find and assign, and also what the student experience looks like. You can still feel free to ask questions about those things, but we do assume essentially that folks attending understand those basics. And so, yeah, let's go into the assignment report. We consider the assignment report data our secret sauce, both the fact that we provide it and also just the way that we structure it, because it really allows teachers, once they're familiar with it, to quickly determine those whole class, subgroup, and individual student level interventions immediately when students need it the most. Also, because we understand, especially with curricula like illustrative mathematics, there will often be references to, deliver this exit ticket and then use the data to, drive instruction in the next lesson. They'll reference using data quite a bit. But curricula don't necessarily tell you where you're supposed to find the time to grade and all of those things. Can you hear me, Charmaine? It looks like I was breaking up a little bit there. Okay.
Yeah, for a moment, but you came back.
All right, there we go. So sorry about that, folks, and technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi has been a little bit slow today. So illustrative mathematics wants you to be using data from the different problem sets that you're delivering to students, exit tickets, and all of that. But they don't necessarily give you any suggestions about when you're supposed to find the time to score and grade and identify trends and the subsequent instructional modifications that you want to make. So we're here to kind of come into that process and make that, using the data to drive instruction piece happen a little bit more quickly and efficiently, without you having to analyze or grade all of your papers first. Also, I think someone might be unmuted and speaking. So if you could just put yourself on mute for me. There we go. And we recommend, as you're implementing illustrative mathematics, analyze your data early and often. It's going to, what we share today, as well as just using the data to support students, is going to build student engagement and help you make the most of our tool, and thus help you make the most of illustrative mathematics as well. So I want to start with just a notice and wonder with one of our live data reports, and Charmaine is going to share a link in the chat. Everybody should already be logged into their ASSISTments accounts. So if you click that link, it's going to take you to a live report. And I just want you to take a few minutes to explore the live report and look at the data. And then we'll have folks come back and share aloud or in the chat any questions, noticings, or wonderings. In particular, if there are things that you think are super prescient or observations that you can make that you think are super valuable, we'll welcome you to share those when we come back together. So like I said, about 2 minutes, and then we will come back together.
Brian, we have a few people saying that they don't have permission to access.
Oh, interesting. So folks are logged into their assistance accounts and they're not able to access that link.
Lisa or Nicole, if you could come off to just verify that you have you're logged into your assistance account. Or in the chat, it's fine too. So that they're logged in, but no access to link. Yeah, they're both.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no worries. We can go into the live report and just take a look at it. Hopefully this is big enough for everybody to see. I'll zoom in a little bit. Any other comments coming in there, Charmaine?
Sorry, no, just confirming that they are logged in without access though.
Okay, it looks like Claire was able to, but maybe not some of the other folks. So I want to take a moment just to look at the data. And Claire, you can feel free to share any noticings or wonderings in the chat. We definitely appreciate that. But just let's take a look at this data report. And I'll just pull it up to the section here. What are some things? Go ahead.
I know you're about to ask some things you noticed. Claire just shared. So if you don't mind, I can share them real quick with you. But one thing she said, she noticed there's 3 different colors in the bar. So for like the charts and the details report, and then also notice like the time spent column, and that she has to open the access option to find, and she found that she could see all the students' input there.
Okay. Excellent. So yeah, definitely have these 3 bars which show you for each specific problem or problem part, whether students, how many students got that problem correct on their first attempt, how many got it correct eventually, so after multiple tries, and then how many students were unable to arrive at a correct answer on their own. So that's great. And you can always click underneath on the x-axis. You can click the problem name itself to actually see what the problem was. And then the amount of time spent, absolutely. You can see that in the detailed report here all the way on the right. And whenever there are open responses, as with problem 2 part B and problem 3 part B, you'll have that assess option that you can click. And that's going to take you into the essay scoring screen where you can score and give feedback on student open responses. And you can see all of the student open responses here in one place. One other thing that we added recently is that not only will we show you the open response part, the explain your thinking, but we've now also added in the main problem so that you're able to reference that when you're trying to score student responses. All right, any other observations coming in?
Well, Jason was wondering how you're able to verify that this is from IM. I was just about to respond to him, but I can come up. We can come off mute and share. Originally, he had asked, the question was like, what assignments is from Kendall Hunt, Engage, and Eureka? And I just mentioned that we support all of them, but he's wondering like, how can you verify that this is an IM question?
Right. Well, we do have an attribution in all of the questions. You might even be able to see it just by clicking one of the problems here. So this report is an Engage New York report. It'll tell you that in the problem that it's Engage New York. We do basically use the entire digital resource for the curriculum to determine what our materials are. So when you're in the find and assign screen and you go into Kendall Hunt, all of our materials sorted by grade level, unit, etc., do come directly from the Illustrative Math curriculum. And when you're in there looking at the problems, you can always double check to see, even if you were to search for problems by standard, which I can show you in a second, when you go within a lesson, you'll see the different sets of problems for that lesson. And then you'll also see the attributions at the bottom to see that it's Illustrative Mathematics. And you can click that to get the full attribution in detail as well. And then let's see. Hopefully that answers your question, Jason. Feel free to follow up in the chat if you have another question. I would be happy to respond. Oh, I think we did. All right. So yeah, let's say, for instance, let's say you just want to search for something aligned to a standard, right? I don't filter all the folders. I just need to be able to find something that aligns to the standards that I'm teaching, but then maybe see what illustrative math has for that standard. You can go to a specific standard, and I'll go to proportional relationships for 7th grade, for instance. And then this is going to load every problem for that standard, but you can also choose to filter by and choose illustrative. And so this will give you a panel where you can see every single problem from the entire illustrative math curriculum that aligns to that standard. And you can see there are quite a few. So you do have a few different ways to access illustrative. And again, when it's illustrative math, you'll see that attribution at the bottom of every problem. All righty. Couple other important things to point out here, since we are in the assignment report. If I can go back to it. And I apologize, my computer's being slow, so hopefully you'll bear with me here. There we go. A couple other things to point out here. So you have your problem averages that can help you to identify what students, which problems your whole class might have struggled on, the average score across the class that can be helpful as well, and then your common wrong answers. So if 3 or more students put the same incorrect answer, we'll tell you what percentage of incorrect students put the wrong answer, and then what that wrong answer was. So in this case, 2/3 of students who answered incorrectly put the answer 59 for this problem. And that can be helpful to guide class discussions or for you to address misunderstandings. So those are just a few examples of useful elements. Something else come in the chat there, Charmaine?
Oh, no, he was just saying thank you. It was a very nice tip.
All right, excellent. No problem. And hopefully, usually our reports are supposed to work. I think one thing that might help is if you, when we post the link for the next live report that we're going to look at, if you copy the link and then paste it into the browser that you're logged in with, maybe that will help. You could also try an incognito window in Google Chrome and log in that way to see if it'll let you view the report. So there are a few different ways to access the assignment report. The first one is within your ASSISTments account. You can always go to My Assignments here on the left. You can filter by class. So if you want to pull up a report for a specific class, and then for any of these, you can click the drop down here and click View Report to access those reports. And then you can also from Google Classroom. Like I said, my computer's lagging a little bit, but I'm going to go over here to Google and show you. And in Google Classroom, I as a teacher liked to live in the classwork tab, but you can click the drop down here and you can view your data from there as well. And if you're in Canvas, you also have the ability to do that as well. So you just click the assignment, click the embedded link, and that's going to take you into your assignment report. So again, just recapping there, you can access it from your ASSISTments account or from Google Classroom or Canvas, depending on what you use. And one thing I will note here is your links will look exactly the same as the students in Google Classroom and Canvas. So the only difference is that when you click it, we identify you as a teacher and take you to your report. When students click it, it identifies them as a student and takes them to the problems you've assigned. Just to recap some of the key characteristics of the report, and I'm going to run through these live since y'all didn't have a chance to really dive into that live report. The first one is just the progress cards here at the top. So you can see who hasn't started, if anyone's in progress and when they last worked on the assignment. If students have completed it, we'll tell you when they completed it. The performance summary, which I already mentioned, shows you for each problem the number of students who got it correct on the first try, correct eventually, or were unable to arrive at a correct answer on their own. In the detailed report, every column is a problem and every row is a student. And we have those key data points I mentioned. You can also click a student if you'd like to see their a more detailed report just for that student, where we give you a play-by-play of every action they took. Did they answer correctly or incorrectly? How much time they spent on each attempt? So definitely some useful information there, especially in those one-on-one conversations with students or parents. In addition to that, if you, let's say you talk to student I here, and you want to give them another chance to try the assignment, you can click the triple dot next to their name and click delete student progress. And that's going to allow the student to click the same link in the same assignment in Google or Canvas and access it and do those problems again.
Brian, we just had a quick question.
Sure.
So Jason is wondering how the grades from assessment will autofill to Google Classroom.
That's a great question. So, and we always refer to them as scores. We definitely, what we generate are scores, not grades. And the reason why we say that is because these scores reflect student perseverance, right? So if they're making multiple attempts, their score is going to go down so that you can see, oh, this student is in a different place in terms of their knowledge of the material versus a student who gets something right on the first try, right? So if you use these scores here as grades, you're in effect penalizing students for making multiple attempts and persevering. It may be the case that sometimes in assignments, you want them, to get things right on the first try, and that's fine. But you can always upload these scores by clicking the triple dot and clicking upload to Google Classroom, or it'll say Canvas if you use Canvas. With Google Classroom, you're going to have to click upload, and then you're going to have to return in order for students to actually see those scores. So just to show you what that looks like, if I go into that specific assignment and view the assignment, you'll have that return button highlighted, and you'll click that in order to return the scores back to students. But you also have the ability to edit these scores. So if you want to change some of these up so that, students who made multiple attempts aren't being penalized, or you want to implement, whatever strategy you want to use to provide a grade based on these scores, you can do that here as a side note. All right. So yeah, like I said, we have the student progress cards, then you have the performance summary, and then the detailed report. You can always click that, again, that triple dot. If you'd like to upload scores to your LMS, you can also download the detailed report as a CSV file if you want to view that data offline. The other cool thing that I wanted to make sure I showed you is this is the problems view of the data. We also have a standards view. And here, what you'll see is the student scores, but then they're broken down according to the different standards represented in the problems that were assigned. So we will tell you the standard, we'll tell you the number of problems that are aligned to that standard, and then we'll show you the student's average score on all of the problems that align with that standard. So it can help you to more specifically target a standard or target specific students for a standard, make that a little bit easier if that's how you do things in your classroom. Any other questions coming in there?
Not right now.
All right. So like I said, we have that detailed report. In the detailed report, you have the class score, the class average score on the whole assignment, and those average scores by individual problem. You've got common wrong answers to see, like, if, again, 3 or more students put the same incorrect answer, what it is, and the percentage of incorrect students that put it. You've got the individual student scores on the assignment. With regard to open response questions, I know I showed you the assess button and how you can click that to score. We also offer a tutorial video that you can watch with your students so that they get a chance to get comfortable with open response questions, as you're kind of building your assessments routine. And we definitely recommend letting students know if you want them to go back and look at your feedback. And also, we recommend having a specific way that students respond in open response questions. It might be that they enter a typed response. It might be that they draw. It might be that they take a picture, which is super easy in our platform, and then add the picture in. So there are different ways that students can approach open responses, and we just recommend that you norm with students on what you want them to do. Like I said, in the standards report, you'll see all the standards represented in the problem set, the number of problems aligned to each standard, and then student average scores aligned to each standard as well. So I wanted to pause and give folks a chance just to share, what do you think are the most important data points you'll use on a daily basis in the assignment report, and why? And you can either share in the chat or you can unmute and share aloud. I'll go back to the assignment report just to make sure that stays fresh in your minds. And I would love to hear from you. What do you think is the most important data point that you might use on a daily basis in our assignment report?
I like the fact that you can analyze a particular standard and notice if you have multiple students not understanding that particular standard or not. And then that way you have a go-to teach for those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And you can even sort those columns by standard as well. So let's say you want to make some red, yellow, green groups based on performance on a standard. You can click this arrow right next to the standard, and it'll let you sort from lowest to highest or highest to lowest, so that you can ID, okay, maybe these 5 students at the top are ready for some enrichment to deepen their knowledge, and maybe the rest of the students here need some additional reteaching and some extra practice. But it's super quick to be able to use a standard report and figure that out. Thank you for sharing. All right, anybody else? What other data points do you think are most important for you that you might use on a daily basis?
So I'm thinking of using this as first kind of for cool downs while we all get used to it. So I like first that I can see the performance summary and just kind of, if I can just see, hey, where are we at as a class? And then, if I see a lot of yellow or a lot of red, then I can dig deeper into that detailed report and see, okay, exactly what's going on with who. So I think that'll make the process of using cool downs on a daily basis hopefully a little bit more efficient and effective.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I really like sort of the reference that you make there to flexibility, right? Like you can use the performance summary and identify quick steps. If you want to spend more time and dig deeper, you can go into the detailed report, and you can kind of, based on how much time you have and what you're trying to do, our report is flexible and will support your needs. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So we definitely also recommend, there are different data points that are going to be useful. The top 3 that we recommend as a priority are going to be your class average score. So you can see our students as a whole understanding the assignment. The problem average scores, so which individual problems need whole class review, and also common wrong answers. So you can use those to facilitate whole class discussion around common misconceptions, or even to work the problem out again with the students and talk about those things together. So those are some common go-tos that'll be super useful for you. I think we were already receiving questions. Y'all can continue to just post those in the chat as they arise, and I'll definitely respond to those as we go. So now we have our problem analysis protocol. And I'm going to try to make this work, given that some folks weren't able to see the live report. But now that we've explored a live report, I want to kind of go through this protocol to analyze data. And it focuses on 3 key steps to identifying which problems you want to re-engage students with to support mastery. So it starts off with looking at the class average score to determine if this is an assignment where students would benefit from revisiting specific concepts. Then it moves on to reviewing the problem average scores and identifying 1 to 2 problems where the average score is lowest and there are common wrong answers, and then analyzing and drawing conclusions from those common wrong answers. So what is the misconception? What's the instructional next step? And so Charmaine is going to share the link to this other data report in the chat. Again, my recommendation for that is to, instead of clicking the link, copy it, and then see if you're able to just paste it into your browser or paste into an incognito window and log in that way. If you're not able to, it's totally fine. I'm going to have the report up here live. Well, let me go back into presentation mode here, 1 second. And then grab this report. Oh, is this the same report? Thought I pulled it different. Maybe I did not. Or maybe I looked at the second one first. Well, whatever. That's okay. That just means we've already looked at it, so it's all good. I put that, Charmaine put that in the chat, and we're going to walk through the problem analysis protocol together using the data in this report. So the first step is, what is the class average? And what is your primary takeaway from this data point? So what is the class average? And what's your primary takeaway from that? So if we could have someone just share in the chat, what's the average and what is your primary takeaway from that? Just looking at what we see on the screen here.
Jason mentioned that the average is 72%.
Yep, that's correct. And if you see a 72% average score, what does that make you think about students in this assignment?
His response was that it was a little struggle still.
Right? It could be struggle. Again, different folks will kind of interpret percentages somewhat differently. But if we're talking about in the 70% range, there might have been some struggle on this assignment.
And then Claire mentioned that that they're all not there, but they're also not too far off. And Jason mentioned that it looks like part 2A was the hardest question specifically.
I love that. Thank you, Claire and Jason, for sharing those as well. So it's like when I see a 72, I definitely think, you know, students are, they're not quite there, but they're not super far off. We're not seeing an average score of 50 or 40 or 30 here, right? So maybe they just need some additional practice. And we're going to come back to problem 2, part A in just a moment, actually. So that's super useful. So, and it's supposed to be 72%, but overall the class hasn't mastered the standard, and it's worth revisiting some of the problems. And so from there, we might identify 2 problems where the student struggled. Jason already pointed out one of those, problem 2, part A. And then we identify the common wrong answers. So 2/3 of students put the wrong answer 9, and 1/3 put the wrong answer 1. So there's definitely some kind of misunderstanding there. When we look back at problem 2, part A, and look at the problem, why might a student, so their job was to determine what's the scale factor that was applied to polygon P to make polygon Q. Polygon P was 5 square units. So what is the scale factor? Why might a student have put 9 and not the correct answer? Any thoughts?
So Jason mentioned that they were taught to count.
So, and feel free to clarify in the chat as well. So Noah drew a scaled copy of polygon P and labeled it polygon Q. The area of polygon P is 5 square units. What scale factor did Noah apply? Now we can see here, if we were to divide this shape up into 5 pieces, like 5 square units, there are 9 in each one of those 5 units, right? So a student might say, well, if the original was 5 square units and Q, you can see that there are 9 blocks inside of each of those 5. Maybe the scale factor is 9, right? So they're kind of misunderstanding what scale factor is. And there's one missing piece from their analysis there. You can also see we have instructional recommendations. So based on essentially expert teacher recommendations on this problem, we give some different ideas about how you can approach responding to misunderstanding on this problem. And ultimately having a student explain why 3 is the correct answer can be super useful, right? Okay. And then, and we're just kind of focused on problem 2 part A right now. So we know that only 4 students got it right on the first try. And then when we do the math, which we just did already, essentially, here, I should have clicked the timer. There we go. That the correct answer is 3, but that students put 9 and 1. And so with that most common wrong answer, again, the students kind of misunderstood what scale factor was, and we want to determine an instructional next step. So if you were the teacher and you noticed that students put the wrong answer 9 when it's supposed to be 3, meaning, they determined, for instance, that polygon P is 5 square units, polygon Q is 45 square units, right? So 45 is 9 times 5. What's the missing piece that they didn't understand here? What's the thing that they didn't do? Yep, Jason likes the instructional recommendation. That's awesome. And so what the student didn't do here is, oh, we get another comment.
Yes, so Claire said, I think she's answering, so they didn't consider the area and the 2 dimensions.
All right. And so ultimately the operation that the students didn't do was take the square root, right? So if we know that polygon Q contains 9 times as many units as polygon P, they should then take the square root of 9 to determine what the scale factor is. So it could be that you spend some time reteaching scale factor and the role of square root in determining a scale factor. It could be, we even have in our instructional recommendations using the My Favorite No activity, display the problem for students to see what the incorrect answer was and the explanation, and have students identify the correct answer and follow up with an explanation as to why 3 is the correct answer. So you could, again, put it back to the students and have them identify what the misunderstanding was. You could reteach on scale factor and clarify the importance of square root. So you have some different options there for how you can figure out your instructional next step. But this was basically just to help you walk through how you might analyze the assignment report from general to more specific on a daily basis. I'll go ahead and pause here and see if there are any questions. All right, and again, feel free to leave any questions that arise as we sort of get to the last section here. So based on your experience with this data protocol, and again, definitely more impactful when you'll have the live data report on your own screens as well. So apologies for any technical difficulties there. But what's one thing you found impactful about analyzing report data and one thing that you felt challenging? You could share one or the other as well. And you can either unmute and share, or you can share that in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. What did you find impactful, and or what's one thing that you found challenging? And I'll just go back over here to the data report as well. One thing that you find impactful, or one thing that you find challenging?
I think one thing that's going to be challenging is with my fellow teachers, and learning another process that they're already being inundated with, learning new curriculum. But if they're able to see the use of this tool, I think some of my fellow teachers can definitely handle this. And so the couple of tips you already gave were fabulous to know.
Mhm. Absolutely. And then, one of the things we like to tell teachers is that this isn't like just another thing you have to check off in your list of things to do as a teacher. What assessments is we basically layer on top of your existing curriculum what you're already doing, and we just give you the ability to give students feedback and to get immediate data, right? So there is a little bit of a learning curve just at the very beginning, but optimally, this should actually save you time. And give back more of your time that you can spend targeting instruction and walking around the room and working with your students, rather than having to determine trends on the fly or grading papers all night and that sort of thing. So really, assessments is supposed to be something that makes your curriculum implementation that much easier. Did we have someone come in the chat?
Yes, and Claire, she said that it's impactful, that there's so many different ways to break down the data report to better understand responses and to inform instruction. And then the challenge would be to make an efficient routine in order to help students use it in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so in terms of an efficient routine for teachers, again, starting with those problem average scores and common wrong answers, then looking at subgroups of students that you may want to target with some additional instruction, and then maybe who are the one or two students who are the most challenged with this assignment, and maybe pulling them aside and doing something to support them as well. So typically a good way to think about it is what's your whole class, what's your subgroup, and what's your individual level intervention based on what you see. All right. So moving right along, we have a few things to think about with your assessments routine. So in terms of the research that we've done through WestEd, we had a randomized control trial, and we found that teachers were able to maximize the positive impact of assessments when they assigned consistently, which in the study meant 30 problems per week across 2 to 3 assignments on average. Again, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to do that right off the bat, or that you'll be able to do that every week, but that's the usage where we saw the highest impact on student growth across the year. Utilizing data, so teachers that maximized impact were viewing 75% of their assignment reports and using those data to plan and differentiate instruction. And then facilitating student discussions, share data with students and discuss common misconceptions. We recommend you pulling this report up in front of your students. Maybe you hide the names, and call out a few specific trends that you see that are about to drive your instruction. Make sure students know when they're starting an assignment in assessments that you're going to see what they're doing. And the whole point of them doing their practice in here is so that you can look at the trends and see how you can best help them afterward. So you want to be intentional about building that student investment in using the platform. And that's really going to help you in terms of getting students to complete assignments on time, taking assignments and assessments seriously. So definitely share those key data points with students and how they drive your instruction. We know that during COVID, teachers' student average assignment completion fell, and some teachers were able to maintain their student engagement. The teachers that were able to maintain their student engagement, like I said, they were viewing more reports. They also left more comments and feedback on, say, like those open responses. So bring in that report data and discuss it with your students. View the data as often as possible and use it to drive your instruction. Those things will help to keep your students engaged because they know how you're using the data, right? Just moving on to our wrap up here. I know we're closing out on time. So Charmaine's going to share our feedback survey in the chat. We really appreciate your feedback. We use feedback to drive all of our updates and shifts and changes to our professional learning. So we definitely appreciate it. It shouldn't take more than about 30 seconds really. And sorry, the date should be 9/06 there. So still learning data to learning growth. And today is September 6th. You can always reach out to us at contact@assistments.org if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to help you. And then we also have lots of great user resources over here in our Help Center. So if I just go to ASSISTments website, under the Help Center here, I can click User Resources, and this is going to show me a whole bunch of different resources organized by topic to help you get started, to help you find and assign the content that you want to, more of a deep dive on reports and data, some different elements to support your students, like those student tutorials, for instance, and a variety of other things as well. So definitely recommend checking that out under Help Center and User Resources. You can also access our webinar recordings in the webinar library, or sign up for a future session under webinar sign up. Did it skip a slide? Nope, it didn't. Okay. All right. So again, thank you so much for coming today. We appreciate y'all for joining us, and also for completing that feedback survey for us. I'll stick around for a couple of minutes just to see if folks have any final questions. And yes, Jason, you will receive a copy probably sometime tomorrow of the webinar recording and the slide deck, so that you have a chance to view that and reference it whenever you like. No problem, Claire. Thanks for joining us. You have a good day as well, Jason. I'll go ahead, unless there are any other questions, we'll go ahead and close out for today. Again, I appreciate y'all for joining us. And again, feel free to reach out to contact@assistments.org if you have any follow-up questions, and we'll be happy to help you. And you'll have a great rest of your day.